These are software developers back in 2022. Our jobs were safe, the pay was good, and we just found out we can avoid the Stack Overflow toxicity by using this new little tool called ChatGPT 3. And this is us now, when that little tool wants to promote us from software developers to customers. In all seriousness, while some people argue that the cost of writing code is now close to zero, the laws of building good reliable software products did not change, and they are actually more important than ever. So, in this Monday morning review, we'll look at some of the most important patterns and principles that shape software systems. Don't worry though, we'll not discuss any of the boring stuff like dry, kiss or solid. Don't get me wrong, these are fundamental, important rules, but apparently, only geeks care about fundamentals in the age where software is generated in a Vegas casino. As you know, my channel is known for its originality and forward thinking, and that's why I can tell you for certain that the developer of the future is not a geek bothered by trivial concepts like clean code, naming things properly, or writing readable functions. The first and most important rule of modern software is the 90-90 rule. This states that you'll spend 90% of your time building the first 90% of a product, and you'll spend the other 90% of your time building the remaining 10%. The skilled mathematicians among you might have figured out that this adds up to 180%. But don't worry, because with AI we'll now complete 180% of the work 10 times faster, or at least that's what my manager keeps saying on LinkedIn. And if you think that you can make things move faster by adding another member to your team, you'll run into Brooks's law, which says that adding manpower to a late software project makes it later. New people take time to get up to speed, consuming existing team members' time for training and coordination, which reduces overall productivity. If we translate this to the modern AI era, adding an agent to a late software project will probably make it both later and more expensive. This is also known as the Ringelmann effect, which states that individual productivity decreases as group size increases. Just like 9 women can deliver a baby in 1 month, adding more manpower to a project doesn't linearly speed it up, it just creates more Slack channels and more time wasted in team meetings. What's funny is that if you are trying hard enough, you'll get to a point where adding people actually yields negative returns per person, but we'll get back to this later in the video when we do one of my favorite petty things, complain about managers. But since I mentioned managers, estimations are key in software projects, so you should always remember Hofstadter's law. Keep in mind that we are generally bad at estimating how long tasks take, especially in complex projects, so it always takes longer than you expect to finish a project, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. See, we even have recursion jokes in this video. Yes, not meeting deadlines is a must when building software, but once you finally manage to build your product, the real fun begins, because Sturgeon's law states that 90% of everything is crap. In other words, in every software product, there's a tiny 10% of features that users actually care about, and a massive 90% that exists purely so people can stay busy. The real challenge of building software products is figuring out which 10% matters. And if that 90% sounds like too high of a number, don't worry. In the era of slop code, this number is actually low. I am confident that 1 year from now, we'll be able to proudly say that 99% of the features from 100% of the software we are building are crap. The App Store is my favorite example here. There are about 2.2 million apps on the App Store alone, built by nearly 1 million publishers. Around 25% of apps are abandoned after a single use, the retention rate after 3 days is about 12%, and by day 30, it collapses to under 4%. So don't think that just because you can generate code in seconds, things will change drastically in the near future. This is where the hype cycle and Amara's law come in, because we as humans tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the impact in the long run. In the short term, we're all convinced AI will replace every developer in the famous next 6 months, and in the long run, we'll probably look back at this era the way we now look at the dot-com bubble. But on a more serious note, the Boy Scout rule is one of the very few rules I think we should all follow. The rule is really simple. Leave the code better than you found it. A cleaner code base is easier to read, work with and extend, so when developers follow this easy principle, teams collectively feel responsible for code quality. And this is when today's sponsor comes into play. Boot.dev is for people who still want to learn to code for real in a world where most developers are quickly becoming professional autocomplete tab pressers. Sure, some people say that you shouldn't bother learning fundamentals when you can just vibe code your way to a half-broken SaaS that looks great but does nothing. However, I strongly believe that the developers who actually understand what their code does are the ones who will still have jobs in 5 years. Boot.dev takes you from complete beginner to backend developer in Python, the way you'd actually learn at a real job, by building real projects, writing real scripts, and breaking real things. And because they understand that bored learners quit, the entire experience is gamified. You earn experience, level up, complete quests, and fight bosses, all while accidentally becoming employable. When you get stuck, Boots the Wizard Bear is your personal AI tutor, and unlike a certain chatbot we've been roasting for the entire video, Boots doesn't just hand you the answer, he asks follow-up questions and nudges you towards actually understanding the concepts you are studying. Please check the link below to get 25% of your first payment for Boot.dev's coding courses. Back to the video, another really good rule to follow is the broken window theory. The idea comes from criminology, where researchers noticed that a building with one broken window, left unrepaired, quickly ends up with all its windows broken. The signal that nobody cares about this place is an open invitation for things to get worse. In software, if you let minor bugs, slop code, or bad practices slide, people assume quality doesn't matter and they'll generate even messier slop. And, trust me, slop is what we'll all be drowning in a couple of years. Kernighan's law states that debugging is twice as hard as writing the code in the first place. But slop is actually generated, so it'll probably be actually 4 times as difficult to untangle that code than to simply rewrite it by hand from scratch. Most people don't think about the implication of generating millions of lines of code without understanding them, not because of malice, but simply because of stupidity or carelessness. Anyway, all this technical talk scared all the managers away, so now is a good time to mention the Dilbert principle. Companies tend to promote incompetent employees to management to limit the damage they can do. You can combine this with the Peter principle, which states that good engineers get promoted until they reach a position they are bad at which point the promotions mercifully stop. These are the people who follow the Dunning-Kruger effect because the less they know about something, the more confident they tend to be. Before wrapping things up, here is your awesome trivia for the day. I mentioned earlier the broken window theory, which is actually proven multiple times in the real world. One of the more fascinating stories comes from the New York City subway in the 1980s. Back then, every single subway car, inside and out, was covered in graffiti. Crime was rampant, fare evasion was basically a sport, and ridership was collapsing because nobody in their right mind wanted to get on one of those things after or before 7 p.m. And to fight this, the city did something very few expected. They started cleaning the graffiti, and if a tagged car showed up again, they'd pull it out of service immediately and clean it before it went back on the tracks. Then, they went after fare evasion, which until then was treated as too minor to bother with. But it turns out, a shocking percentage of people not paying for their ride were also carrying illegal weapons or had outstanding warrants. So they started arresting them, and the violent crime everyone had given up on started dropping. So there you have it, 13 rules to help you navigate through the process of building modern software. Sure, they won't make you a better software developer, but it doesn't really matter because the only thing people care about these days is 10xing their productivity. However, they'll help you navigate your office politics for the few months we all have left until LLMs take over and we are all promoted to customers. If you liked this video, you should consider joining our community where I'm posting more dedicated weekly content. Please don't forget to smash all the buttons, and until next time, thank you for watching.